When was the last time you took a leap of faith, trusting that everything is going to work out? Do you crave growth, or are you merely content with the status quo? If you want more out of your life, out of your career, and out of your relationships, you are in the right place. Take the leap and discover how to create a life by design rather than living it by default. Real success starts with you. Now here's your host, Colleen Biggs.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Take the Leap. I am your host, Colleen Biggs, and for the next two episodes, it's going to feel a little bit different. Many of you know, since you've been around for a long time, I interview a lot of women on Take the Leap, and that is because I serve women in the Leap community. As a business consultant, I've worked with men and women, but for the past 6 to 7 years, I've really honed in on having large conferences for women, producing large workshops and events for women, as well as working with them one-on-one. And today we have Mark Silver with us. So it's going to be a different conversation, but I'll tell you, the very second I met Mark, he just exudes love. He was introduced to me from a good friend of mine, Steve Romano, and I really want to dive in with him today, what the act of love in business means. What is that to lead with love in a business? And I couldn't think of a better person to help guide us through that today than Mark. So I'm very excited to get to speaking with him. But before we do, of course, I have to thank the sponsor of today's show, Phoenix Drone Pros. And at Phoenix Drone Pros, we love what we do and are passionate about each and every drone photography and video shoot. We've been in business since 2017. Our talent and skills shows in the video production we deliver. We offer fast service and commercial real estate, movies, events and construction site monitoring. We also provide drone virtual tours that are all the rage right now. These virtual tours are great for team building and entertainment. So contact us today at phoenixdronepros.com to schedule your shoot online or get more information. We are now franchising, so please reach out for information on how to purchase your own drone company today. We capture everything. Thank you so much, Phoenix Drone Pros, for being the sponsor of today's show. Well, I'm not going to make you wait much longer because I really want to get to introducing Mark. You can just tell the aura of today's show feels different because I feel like love calms us down. It fills us up with this kind of yummy, warm feeling. And that's how I feel right now, just being in Mark's presence. So since 1999, Mark Silver has worked with heart-centered entrepreneurs to help them realize that every act of business can be an act of love. Mark is one of the pioneers in integrating real spirituality with the nitty-gritty of small business. He founded Heart of Business Incorporated in 2001. A designated master teacher within the Sufi lineage, he has received his Master's of Divinity. As a coach, teacher, and spiritual healer, he's facilitated thousands of individual sessions with entrepreneurs and has led hundreds of classes, seminars, groups, and retreats. His weekly writings and teachings are followed by thousands of people around the globe. Mark, welcome to the show.
I'm delighted. Thank you so much. Yay.
We're humbled to have you here today. And I never steer my listeners wrong when I bring on individuals that I specifically pick out and choose and say, I really want you to be on the show. Let's go back a little bit before 1999, which is when you really launched all of this. Have you always been very deep integrated in the acts of love in business, or where was there a shift at one point that led you? Yeah, let's talk about the shift.
Yeah, well, I'm laughing because I have not. I have not.
People ask me all the time about women. Have you always been a big supporter of women? I'm like, no.
Right.
No, but let me tell you what happened.
I was so shut down when I was young. I felt like there was like a wall between me and the world, and it was something very self-protective because growing up as a cis man in this culture, it's not very friendly. There's not a lot of love and care. I mean, my parents are warm, lovely people and I'm close to them, but in general the world is kind of harsh. And I was very sensitive, and I had to shut that down pretty quickly. And so it wasn't until, into young adulthood in my 20s and such that I really learned how to cry again, learned how to like access my emotions, and but still really unsure of myself. And so there was a lot of healing that I went through, both coming out as bisexual in the 1980s and being connected to queer men's community. I am married to a woman and I've been with her for 30 years, but that was a really important part of my life, and really opening my heart. And and then the healing that I did, both within the Jewish community that I was active in when I was younger, and then finding the Sufis again through my wife Holly. We found spiritual healing through Sufis. It was taught by this beautiful man who passed in 2015, a Palestinian sheikh from Jerusalem, who has he was a teacher at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, and he would come to the U.S. for a month about once a year and teach students about how to witness love in everything.
Mm, yeah. So this was obviously a journey for you. Well, how many years of a
Wow.
journey?
Um, what year is it now? We're still evolving, still changing, still growing. It's there was a pretty intense period, um, I guess in the like early mid 1990s, and then again in the early 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
up until like all through those first years at the Sufis, and then when I was got my teachership, and then I earned my Master's of Divinity, and I started to feel um, kind of a sense of groundedness in myself, and it's continued to evolve, of course, because that was still, at this point, what, 15 years ago? So it's like I'm still, I feel different than I was, 6 years ago for sure. But
Mm-hmm.
it's been a journey, and of unmasking, my who I am. And I at this point I feel pretty blessed and grateful to feel confident and clear in myself and in my own heart. Yeah.
I want to talk about that journey you just said about unmasking yourself to really become the person who you are. I'm assuming, I might just be jumping to assumption here, that that is what calls a lot of people to you to coach them, to heal them, is they're really kind of masking a lot of what has maybe happened throughout their life or who
Mhm.
they really are. And there's a place that I'm sure they find in their life where they might even feel like they have everything. It might be fame, it might be money, it might be
Mhm.
success in a career, but they're not happy. And so tell me a little bit about who you're working with and what
Yeah.
is the commonality there.
Well, so it's really interesting because we work with uh, I work with people in small business, people, because we're so explicitly spiritual in our work. We work with people from all different spiritual backgrounds, from many, many different perspectives. But if people don't have any spiritual orientation at all, I have referrals. I have people who, work in a heart-centered way that aren't explicitly spiritual. So they tend to be that. They tend to know themselves decently well, but business, like being in business, they feel like they have to armor themselves,
Mm,
and they feel like they have to do it how they see other people doing it, which is, I mean, that's painful just on its own. But often the most visible uh, examples in business are people who are not, we don't really want to be copying.
mm,
you know we we want to be ethical, we want to do the right thing, we want to care for people. And a lot of times the examples that are held up um, in the mainstream, or even in my industry of business development, the people that make themselves really visible, hmm, how we want to look and see and make sure that those people are people that are worth following. And
Yeah.
so, um, that's where people get stuck, is like, do I have to break my heart? Do I have to betray my values in order to be successful in business? And that's what it looks like. And
Hmm.
so that's a lot of folks um, come to me because they're stalled in that way. And I, one of my book, Heart Centered Business, I start the book out this way, and I start with clients this way a lot. It's like, if you have issues with business, I do not want you to get over them, because that's wisdom. Like, you're reacting to something real, you're responding to something real, and you don't want to discard that wisdom. However, we do want to open our hearts and lean in and say, is there a path of love here? Is there a way to do what we want to do, to be successful, to put our gifts out there, to
Hmm.
support people and help people without hurting ourselves? But we want to trust our reactions. We just want to look more deeply. If that,
Hmm.
I don't, I think I,
No,
you know,
it does. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I trust me, because I run these large conferences and a lot of women show up. We just had one last Friday in March, on March 22nd. And we had 140 ladies in the room. And
mm,
I run events the way that I feel events should be run, which is making it all about them, not all about me, and how they can connect, how they can, for a moment, pour into other people without any expectation and allow themselves to be poured into at the
mm,
same time. Everyone should leave there with a full cup, and everyone should leave there with answers to questions that they have, because there's so many resources in the room. We have millions of connections. We should be able to connect them with something that they're looking for. And I get a lot of advice, Mark, on how I should run my events. You should do this, you should do that. And a lot of it's very business. But the one common thread I will say from everyone who attends my conferences, they'll say, this is a conference like no other I've ever attended,
mm.
because the love in the room was just off the charts, you know?
It's so beautiful. I'm so
Right?
glad you're able to do that. That's such a beautiful
I
space to
think
hold.
it's setting the space and the stage and
Mm,
allowing it to happen, and it not being all business, because as an entrepreneur, the beauty of that is we can do it how we want to do it. So, anyone
mm,
out there listening, if you're following or doing things the way a certain coach or someone is telling you you have to do it, I have worked with them in the past, people like that, and have left because it just didn't align with who I was inside spiritually, my soul. It just didn't feel right.
mhm.
And that seems like the first step, is to realize, is who I'm working with or what I'm doing feel right? If something's off and you really want, to learn more how you can express yourself in a way that is authentic, yet in a way that's still very representative of you. Do you feel that some people feel that if you're not this kind of very masculine, atypical, driven, dominant, I'm trying to use all the mainstream words out there,
Right.
hardcore, riding the line of really what's right and wrong and doing things that may not be quite ethical, that's the only way to have power or money, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely not. I
Okay.
mean, it's a really common path in our culture,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Um, and But that, no, 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 you don't have to do it that way.
Hmm.
Um, one of the things that I think is so important when we're looking at business and we're looking at wanting to be successful, is that we want to understand the intentions and the principles behind, like, a lot of times what gets taught or what gets learned or what we kind of soak in just watching people
Hmm.
is the exterior, is like, okay, so, oh, they did this thing on Instagram, or they did this thing on, LinkedIn, and that's what I need to do. um, but what if you're not looking at the deeper intention, like all the work that we teach, we do have templates and examples and things like that because it's helpful to learn, but we always teach what's the principle behind this.
Mhm.
A story. We were working with a client who very introverted, very powerful, very wonderful person, very introverted, and we were wanting them to support their business to be seen by more people and to get to know more people. And she'd had this wonderful invitation to someone who owned this clinic and had a decent audience locally to them, said, "Hey, come and give a talk." And we were discussing that. She's like, "I don't give talks. Like, I'm interested. Like, that's not how I operate." I said, "Well, why? Like the intention is to be introduced to this, to let the person whose audience this is transfer their trust that they have with this audience to you so that you can
Mhm.
receive the trust that they have in this new audience. Why don't you create something that really matches your personality?" And after talking about that, um, came up with the idea of, okay, well, we will explain what you do really clearly and what the intention is, and people can sign up. You'll be there for a day, and people can sign up for 20-minute one-on-ones with you. And it still wasn't like for an introvert, that's still a lot of energy,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it worked way better. And what she had was the people who were self-selecting and who were really drawn, and she made really deep connections with people, and it was really powerful. And so when you're clear about what the intentions are
Mhm.
and what the principle is that's behind the intention, you can find a way that works with your heart, that works with your values, and and that is fun, hopefully, and full of life.
Yeah, yeah. Does does someone have to be in a certain mindset in their life to really dive into this work? Do they have to be ready? I so to speak, I've worked with a lot of energy healers and I've gotten the person I'm working with today, there's questions that they ask, based on what do you really want out of this journey, that you're about to go
Mhm.
through? What are you looking for? Are there answers that you feel like you need? Is there a place in your life that you still feel like you haven't resolved issues?
Mhm.
They ask a lot of deep, profound questions to get you thinking like, well, what do I really think about my life and where am I? And I feel like we always have something trapped up that we haven't quite let go of or released. And do you find that working with um entrepreneurs that they're just trying to figure it out, or are they coming to you because they have figured out their business but they want to really now kind of turn inward to work on themselves, or is it kind of it doing it in
Well,
synchronous?
a lot of it's in synchronicity, and
Okay.
also because we work with people. I say we because we have a team, and
Yeah.
we have some other things that we do. We have there are people that I work with individually in advanced stages of business development. People I've worked with clients recently that were, I want to retire and I want to pass, have a legacy, and I want to train people to do what I'm doing before I retire. And we've helped people, and that's been like a very deep personal inner journey, as well
Mhm.
as some of the practical stuff. And then we have a lot of people who are new in business, or they've been doing business maybe for a while, but it's like it might as well be new because the struggle is still there, and they haven't figured out, like, how does this run smoothly. And so there's a lot of practical stuff, but there's this approach to spirituality in business that we do not do, that I call the gas tank approach, whereas like you go
Okay.
fill up in spirituality over here, and then you go over here and do the business until you're empty, and then you go back to your cushion. I don't That can be helpful. I don't want to say negative about something that might work for someone. We try to weave the love into everything so that
Mm.
what you do is nourishing. And so you can't go through a heart-centered sales training, our sacred selling training, without some, really deep inquiries in your own heart.
Mhm.
But it's not like we preload that. It's like you learn that on the journey. You know, you learn like, okay, I'm here to learn about how to be in a sales conversation without being manipulative, but
Mm-hmm.
without losing people and boring them. All right, so what do we need to clean out of your own heart? What kind of assumptions are there? What kind of stuck places? And what are the practical pieces? What are the structures that are going to help hold you, you know, so that you can flow through it? I've been talking about this a lot. It's been coming up a lot. I think that people who are heart-centered and spiritual, because the outside world can be so harsh sometimes,
Yeah.
is that we turn towards the inner, and then we end up privileging the inner as if the inner is more than, or is like more sacred than the outer. And part of how we got into creating such a harsh world for ourselves is by not treating the outer as sacred.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that the structures of your business are as sacred as your inner heart connection. At least we
Mm.
want them to be. That's what we want to be. And so
Yeah.
I try to urge people, support people in not privileging the outer over the inner, because the business needs the structures to work well, and they need to be as beautiful as the gifts
Mm-hmm.
that you're bringing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love the way that you said that. And so I kind of pictured like this heart. And in order for us to really access the full level of the full heart, we need to clear out some things that could be stuck in there. And you do that with a lot of the clients that you work with. Now you do,
We
yeah, and I know you said as a coach teacher, you facilitate thousands of individual sessions, but you also do classes, seminars, groups, and retreats. So do you have anything coming up, or a retreat coming up, or any events coming up that would be of interest to our listenership?
Yeah, in fact, we are holding a live version of our Sacred Selling course that's going to be running in mid-May through June.
Okay.
Um, and then after that, the next course that we'll be running in the fall will be our Marketing to Strangers course. Like, how do you market your business to strangers? And both of those are meant, they're standalone. You could take them and walk away and get a lot of wonderful value from them. And by the way, we price our things at pay from the heart, so that we have you set the price, we set some boundaries, and then you set some boundaries, and we come to hopefully a price that really works for everybody. And and then we invite people at that point into our learning community, because I used to teach 6-month and year-long courses. What happens in those is that people have lives, and it's rare for someone during a course like that to be able to implement more than 20 or 30 or 40%, and then the course is over. And having worked with so many different businesses, we approximate about 4,500 businesses over the last 24 years. It takes probably 3 to 4 years to go from like the startup level of
Yeah.
development through the 3 stages into momentum. And you want to be supported at various times. Like sometimes you can be really into it, and sometimes you need a little bit of space. Your adult child is getting married, or you have a sick elder, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's like lots of things that can be going on, and you're just tired, or you're just vacation or whatever. Kids are home from school over the summer, so you go up and down. And so our learning community has a lot of is meant to remedy that by having, it's not DIY, meaning there's a lot of support on a weekly basis, but it's meant to be to give the support that's needed,
Mm.
uh, at the level that the person is needing. So we've really tried to create a strong container of love with a
Mm-hmm.
lot of resources to help people through that, the time that it takes to really develop a business. I want people to, you know, we're into regenerative agriculture. We have a few acres here in central Pennsylvania. I'm looking out my window at our little mini orchard.
Mm-hmm.
The word orchard is a stretch, but there's some fruit trees. There's fruit trees out there. They're growing. Um, it just takes time for things to develop. It takes time
Mhm.
for things to develop. We don't do something once and it's done. We do it and then we iterate it and make it better. And we iterate it and we return to it and we iterate it, make it better. There's things that we have to go through. Um, and then when our heart gets cleared because we went through some rough stuff, just learning about it and the emotions that come up, then the next step is easier and the next step is
Mhm.
easier, and I mean, there's so much to say about the journey of business, but it can be really beautiful if you're not trying to it's ironic. Let me put it this way. You move faster, much more quickly by not rushing.
Mm. I love that. You kind of gave us a visual which summed up everything we've been talking about today too, which is you plant the seed and then you've got to nurture it for it to grow, right? And so it really is about that growth, and no one can expect that you're going to go from zero to hero, or be able to bring the art of love into your business overnight. It takes time. And I love that you have a community for support. So I know your website is heartcenterbusinessbook.com. So do you actually have a book that you've written? I didn't
I
read
do.
that anywhere.
I do. Well, so
Oh,
heart-centered
beautiful.
business, healing from toxic business culture, so your small business can thrive. Um, this is the book, and that website you have is the book's website. You can also we're slowly, because it came out in October, we're transitioning towards using our regular website as the main site.
Nice.
We heartofbusiness.com. You can go there, and on the homepage, there's a place to get the first chapter of the book if you want to check it out, and check out our other resources. But it's yeah, this book is based on one of our flagship courses called The Heart of Your Business, and that hundreds and probably a couple thousand people at this point have been through, and it's intended to help people have a healthier relationship to business and to understand the terrain that they're moving on. So
Hmm.
many things in business, it's like, here, learn the latest sexy thing, learn how to do Instagram, or learn how to do a membership site, or learn how to like something very specific, and that kind of skill building is wonderful, but
Hmm.
it's not the answer. It's a piece that's needed. Those are pieces that are needed for certain businesses at certain points. But by knowing the whole journey, knowing the developmental stages of business development, by knowing what healing you need in your own heart in relationship to business and money, and marketing, which are all covered in the book, then what happens is it becomes possible to approach these topics in business that need to be approached,
Hmm.
with love, um, instead of feeling like you either have to turn away from it to protect yourself, or you have to force yourself to do it when it doesn't feel good.
Right. I love that. The lessons that we've learned today are so valuable, Mark. Thank you so much for just bringing this energy to the podcast today. Of I 1,000% agree with you, in having love as part of our business. If it's who you are, then it should be, what your business is. And I just really believe in treating other people with love and kindness. And I just don't understand why people do not. It's just fiberglass to me. I don't know. I just have a hard time understanding it. So you brought a lot of context to us today of how we can bring that love into our business. And it sounds like you have a lot of support and community, that is there, that surrounds how you support business owners. So again, tell us the website one more time, and then we'll make sure that we have that at their fingertips again, when they're listening.
Sure. Very simple. Heartofbusiness.com, just like that.
Perfect.
And yeah, and there's lots to see there. You can check it out. I always recommend people um, get on our email list and to check out the resources there, because it's very easy to get drawn in. People can talk a good game. Maybe I'm talking a good game. Who
Yeah.
knows? It's like it's through consistency with
Hmm.
someone you get to know, like, oh, are they for real? Like, do they really show up over time? And does what they're suggesting actually bear fruit?
Hmm.
And so I recommend people, take their time checking us out and make sure that it really resonates.
I agree. To all of our listeners out there, you're the only you that's ever been. You're the only you that's ever going to be. And I said you on purpose several times because you need to run your business the way you want to run it. So if something inside you right now is saying, like, oh, I would love that, and I don't feel like I am running my business the way I would love to run it, then heartofbusiness.com is where you need to go. I love that you said get on your email list because it's true. They can get to really know, like, and trust you through that, understand what you do, and really be able to figure out what's best for them to get started. So, and definitely grab the book, the Heart Centered Business book. I'm going to grab that for sure. I mean, I think all of us, any of us that have been in corporate in the past, have some healing to do.
Oh,
And I'm assuming that book is going to help us do that as
I
well.
think it should. I hope that's the intention.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, for being on today's show. I know the listeners, I got a ton out of it. You bring great energy. So to all of you out there, remember, this is your chance to bring love into your business. So act now and reach out to Mark over at heartofbusiness.com. And that's all we have for you today. So thank you for everyone for joining us. Listeners, we will see you again next week. I believe I have another gentleman that is just amazing that I am interviewing on my show. So I guess the guys are really stepping up these days, Mark,
I hope
and
so. We
showing
need to.
they are showing up in my life, which is wonderful because they haven't always. So I'm glad that they're showing up today. This is just wonderful. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you're doing for others and entrepreneurs out there. We need more people like you in the world, Mark. So thank you so much. And to all of you, until next week, be you and be strong. Bye-bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed our show today, as our guests shared their secrets on designing their life by taking the necessary leaps to expand their influence and attract the right people and clients into their lives. To start these easy steps for yourself, be sure to visit www.colleenbiggs.net/freebies to download the 7 ways to increase your exposure today.